I'm Vienna Marie and I am a multidisciplinary designer. This means I am a photographer, videographer and graphic designer, and I can switch in between. I also do have a history in PR, creative arts and performing arts as well, like dancing. Question 1. What is my story? I've always been a creative person ever since I was younger. I love dancing, I love drawing. I guess I wanted to take it more seriously when I went into high school. Pretty much my story started year 11 and 12 when I realized that I had a knack for film and also photography and Photoshop, and I was like, I hope I can make a career out of this. In uni, I decided that, you know what, I got into a great course, Bachelor of Visual Communications, hence it being graphic design. Things started falling into my lap randomly, and it was all because I started networking. I started networking when I was in second year, and actually in first year, a few mates and I, 3 guys and me, we decided to make a YouTube called Project Town. It was really cool because it started to become a bit of a small business, and we were just in first year and we were like, what were we doing? And it was a nice little thing to be in a little hub where people from Western Sydney, they wanted to get together and they watched the videos, and to this day one of our videos is a series that I made called Friend Zone, and it has over 200,000 views. So I guess we learnt some things, and from there we actually branched out into a small business doing weddings and events, you know, doing the coverage of either photography or video and even logo design, and that was really cool. So from there, the networking continued. I started to reach out into Business Chicks, which is the largest women's community, I guess, within entrepreneurs, artists, etc., etc. And that made me blossom because I learned so much about freelance, but also I learned so much more about my own skill set, wanting to really make a name for myself. And I guess from there, it's all about the tactic, like I guess the skill set of just networking, having no shame, remembering that you are still learning and growing, and if you really want it, you have to hustle. I really implemented this and I made an amazing network. So I'm pretty happy because this is where I am now, where I am establishing myself as I guess a fashion photographer, and it's really hard, but I wouldn't have done it without, you know, networking with people in Melbourne and such, and people from Uluru. I shot Hype and last year and went to Uluru for the coverage, same as Business Chicks. I shot Mercedes-Benz. Like, it was just a collection of things that I'm so blessed to have. That's my story so far. Much to learn. Tell us about a time when things didn't go the way you wanted. There came a time where I actually landed myself in PR, and it was something that just fell into my lap, but I also felt it would probably be a good time, being young and in my 20s, that I should get a proper full-time job, obviously. And I landed myself in PR, and it was probably really out of my comfort zone, but I learned a lot. I guess I wanted to explore that self within a business entrepreneur setting. It's always good to establish yourself in that sort of thing or base, especially if you're trying to make a name for yourself and your own brand. I don't know if it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it led to a moment where, as the months went past in the role, I realized my creative spirit, or my, you know, the will to keep my dream alive was dying. And I guess that was a time where it didn't really go well, because I didn't expect, you know, it was sort of the situation of money versus time versus dreams versus passion, and it sucked. But at the end of the day, I actually resigned from that job because it just started giving me anxiety. Being a creative, you always need to harness that part of yourself. So, lesson learned. Tell me about a project or accomplishment that you considered to be the most significant in your career. I don't know, it's tough to say one. Actually, I'm gonna say two, a project and an accomplishment. Number one, a project. This is last year. I've always wanted to go to Uluru. It's one of those places that people are like, what? Who wants to go to Uluru? But it was one of the most beautiful places that I've always wanted to go to, and that was granted. through a project, 2 projects. As I said, Hype DC, the shoe brand, they were holding an event there and they needed a photographer, and I was freelancing with a business called Red Scope Films, which are an amazing studio. I love the boys to bits, and they wanted a photographer, so thank goodness I was there right time. And yeah, I got to go with them to Uluru to do something that I loved, and I actually got to stay there for a week because it ended up being that Business Chicks was covering, they needed a videographer as well. So I stayed in Hype for I stayed in Uluru for 1 week, and that was crazy. I loved it. I loved having that independence, really hustling, pushing myself, waking up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sleeping at 12. It was amazing. It was pretty much the turning point in my career. An accomplishment in my career would have to be covering last year and even this year Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. From what I've learned, it's quite hard to get into runway, and you really have to have the right connections to certain media, magazines, or just being an influencer yourself. I had the lucky chance and opportunity to be given that by being connected with Couturiing Online magazine from a friend and freelance photographer in Melbourne. Being a young person that had not much experience in shooting fashion, runways, or street style, I made so many friends in the media pit, and that was an accomplishment in itself. Being that young and to shoot with the big leagues like Getty and Australian, I was stoked about that, and I'm so glad I had that connection. So that was really fun. I loved it. What did you do yesterday? To be real, I actually just slept the majority of the day. I think that's kind of the good thing about freelance, that if you feel like you've pushed yourself so much, mentally, emotionally, or physically with what you do, because freelancing is a 24/7 job. So yesterday I had a good day where nothing was on and I just slept. Now what is to keep going, keep hustling. I have a few runway shows to do. I have one next week in Canberra, I have one in October, and I'm trying to line up other things as well. But yeah, I think it's just stay true to who you are and keep going, keep learning. It's still such a big uphill battle, but I think it's worth it in the end. So yeah, I hope this helps. So yeah. See ya.